it's probably time now. It's 4 minutes past the hour to let's get digital, as an Australian singer once nearly sang. So today, thank you everyone who's dialed in to join our State of Collaboration or State of Digital Collaboration Expert Talk. This is part of the SWOOP Academy, which we launched this year just to pull together a lot of the content that we love sharing here at SWOOP to hopefully add some value to the communities of practitioners that engage with SWOOP. And yeah, today is a first for us as a panel session. We're giving this this format a try in the digital space. So really delighted to have three very cool experts on the call today to speak with you. I will be doing as minimal amount of talking as possible, and I can see Kurt's eyebrows raising there, going, "Oh, that'll be nice." As little Pete as possible is always a good thing. So yeah, really today I just want to do a quick introduction. I've got a little bit of kind of context to share, and then we'll go into a discussion with the experts. That's what you're all here to hear about. Christian, yeah, having me and Kurt on the same call is a recipe for disaster. So I'm under strict restrictions on the amount of time on the microphone I can have. But thankfully we have Jaap and Ana here to balance out me and Kurt and add some different perspectives. Just on a personal level, this is a really nice thing for me to experience today, because all three of our experts on the panel today, I've spent many years reading your content as a practitioner in the space. And when I've been intranet manager, internal comms manager, digital workplace manager, digital employee experience, all these areas I've read and dipped into the content and the work that you've done. And so I really appreciate you making the time to come and have a conversation with me and to share your thinking with all the people who've dialed in today. Just a couple of things in terms of who's on the call. So from SWOOP, we've got myself, Nicole and Gemma. There's also Serena as well. But if you see Gemma or Nicole being active in the chat and Serena in the chat, you know they're from SWOOP. If you've got any questions around SWOOP, reach out to any of us. But yeah, really today is about our panelists. And I just want to give a quick background to each of our panelists. For those of you that may not have come across them before, I don't know what rocks you've been hiding under, because these are three great brains, particularly in this region. You do well to not stumble upon their great content. So I'll start with Ana in the middle there. So Ana, based in Portugal now, right? The founding partner of Nomen, a 22-year-old consulting company. I didn't know you were allowed to set up a consultancy when you were 11 years old, but that's fine. You go for it. And what Nomen does is it focuses on knowledge management, social networks, and culture change. But Ana spent a fair bit of time in the UK working as a knowledge manager in a challenge, what I assume would have been a challenging position with the NHS Modernisation Agency. So some very worthwhile work there as a senior consultant at Headshift and culture change manager at Abbey National as well. So really diverse experience there. For those that were on early enough to hear Gemma and I talking about how much we enjoyed the Social Now conference in Lisbon the year before last, or where are we now? Last year. Yeah, it was last year. Yeah, starts early last year. Social Now is a conference that Ana sets up, and for me personally, I'll say it was probably the most enjoyable conference that I've been to, and it's got a really unique setup, unique design. We'll share the link in the chat later on if it's not already there, but it's well worth taking a look at. Social Now conference, which will be happening again early next year, so I would recommend getting involved with that. But Ana has been contributing to particularly the knowledge management sector, and sort of the expertise on that sort of area is very true and strong. So it's a pleasure having you here today, Ana. Jaap, based in the Netherlands, the founder of Orange Trail. So Orange Trail, I love this. I ripped this line from your website because I love it. You're a dedicated band of consultants, storytellers, and designers. So I love this sort of I picture pirates on a ship. So it's a dedicated band of consultants, storytellers, and designers. Love it. So Orange Trail teaches organizations and their people the skills to be more connected, more collaborative, and more productive. So, and facilitated by the best technology as well. So it's really awesome offering that Jaap and his team pulled together. And again, yeah, a pleasure to have you on here. And for me, having sort of seen a bunch of the stuff that you've done over the years and put out into the world, I definitely see you as a sort of source of expert knowledge around particularly social and open communication within organizations. So the work that you've done with leaders and teams and organizations to nurture that more open and transparent and productive and beneficial communication and collaboration environment. Kurt, I'm sure many of you on the call, I know a few I've been in intra-team meetings with, a few who are dialed in today. Kurt is the founder of Intra-Team. He's worked extensively with intranet and digital workplaces since 2000. Yeah, so yeah, we've got some proper knowledge on this panel today. And Kurt has facilitated knowledge sharing about intranets, digital workplaces, all the sort of many things that encompasses around change management, Microsoft 365, SharePoint stuff, enterprise search, collaboration, obviously. So yeah, Kurt is highly respected in our space, and I think that's primarily to your attitude, Kurt, around sharing knowledge, and that is what we're here to do today. So, what is the knowledge we're here to share? Well, look, the concept behind this panel session came about off the back of SWOOP publishing our 2023 State of Digital Collaboration benchmarking report. This is where we analysed a whole load of interactions across Microsoft 365 and particularly as well Teams. And we've looked into that and seen what are we seeing from the data around collaborative behaviour. What's the state of digital collaboration in 2023? So this report is available to download now. I'll ask one of my colleagues if you could fish out, if it's not already done so, fish out the link where people can register to download the report if they haven't done so already. But today, to sort of give the conversation, this panel session, some direction, we've taken the 4 key themes from the report. And then I'm going to pose some questions around these themes and get the perspectives of Jaap and Ana and Kragh around these key themes. So the direction of today's conversation will be dictated by these 4 key themes from our research, which are quite interesting, I hope you'll find. For me, they were certainly interesting, particularly when I think back to my time in the trenches as a practitioner. And when you think about all of the media and the noise that's out there about digital modern collaboration, it's interesting when you look at the data and see what's the reality. So there's this big difference between what people say they do and what they actually do. And data like our benchmarking report, that can actually help sort of demystify a lot of stuff. And these 4 key themes really resonated with me, and they'll guide the discussion today. So email still dominates. For me, this is sad. I'm sure there's probably 1 or 2 people who love email on this call, maybe, but email still dominates. So most employees spend the equivalent of a full day a week in email. What a scary statistic that is. Imagine how much of an organization's payroll is dedicated to people just sitting in their email, working through that. It's crazy. So that, but we're seeing from the data that still dominates. This one is an interesting one off the back of the pandemic and the big shift to digital working as the default behavior. Meeting overload is a myth. So we see really clearly in our data, things like only 1% of employees have 5 or more meetings per day. So this concept that you would think was everybody's experience is actually only a really small portion of people's experience of this back-to-back meetings and just overloaded completely. And when we take that the next step, you see less than 17% of people using Microsoft 365 have more than 2 meetings per day. So we're talking about a real sort of outlying segment of people that actually have a genuine big problem with meeting overload. That's not to say we shouldn't address it, and we'll get some ideas from the panel on this concept. But from a theme perspective, meeting overload is a myth. There's a massive variation in how people are using the same toolkit. So this is around collaboration being something you should do together, right? Seems obvious. But you get together in a team and you've got different participants in the team doing different things with the same tools and having different preferences. And we see from the data only 5% of teams or groups or departments have strong and consistent collaboration habits. So we'll be looking at that. How do you develop these collaboration habits? And then the final point from the report, the final key theme was we're seeing more usage of the digital toolkit. We're particularly seeing more people using Teams channels. We're seeing more guest access, so more sort of external or partner collaboration, and we're seeing more file sharing. So we're seeing, in one way, that could be positive, that we're seeing more, but does more necessarily mean better? So we'll be asking that question as well. So with that context in mind, let's talk. Why don't I stop sharing screen so we can have some faces on screen, and then let's get started. So let's explore these key themes and get the thoughts of the panel. Can I start with Jaap on this one? Because I want to get straight into email addiction. This problem of organizations, people still being addicted to email as their main thing. And Jaap, I know you're a big proponent of alternatives to email. Do you see this as a big problem still for most organizations?
So I see it as a massive problem for almost all organizations. The question is, do people in the organization see it as a massive problem as well, or do they see alternatives? And I think that's a bit of the problem. I think a lot of people are just, it's just the way things are. It's something you have to deal with, and I think a lot of people just don't know what the alternatives are, because not a lot of companies I really see doing proper adoption on new ways of working. If they do adoptions, very often explaining how teams work, and that is doing calls like this and explaining chat. So really proper education on how collaboration works and how you can improve your work. I don't see it happen a lot, and so a lot of people don't know about it. You do, like you said here, almost everybody complain about it, and I think rightly so, because email has its place in their organization. I think email should be used for actually for communication that is irregular. So if we would communicate about this session together, we would use email, because we don't talk to each other every week. So their email is very good, but email is used for everything. I have accounts with our corporate clients, and if I go back to one of these accounts and I haven't been there for a month, the email box is full of employee announcements: who's become a leader, who's gone with a pension, there's this the corporate communication department misuses email because they know they get eyeballs. They do, because it's the only way where people are every day, and therefore email is used to do communication that should be in another place. So it's misused in that sense. It's misused also to send colleagues or whatever different versions of documents. Here's a concept. Here's version 0.2. Here's all the responses from all the people. So these create explosions of emails, versions flying around, and that gives this feeling of not being in control. And the latter example, there's a great alternatives working in channels and working in threads that really make that nice and organized, and there's one version of the document and everybody's in the same version and everybody can see each other's comments. So there's really good alternatives to it, but I don't see a lot of change, and I've been doing this for 11 years. So that's sad. And I think maybe the worst thing of email is it's also very often misused to do politics, with the CCs, BCCs and all of that stuff. Which I think a lot of people also have bad days sometimes when they see somebody in CC that they wouldn't like to be in CC and worry the rest of the day of the impact that's going to have on their project or whatever. So it's I think it's misused a lot, and there's a lot of good alternatives for it, and it should be a small portion of the communication that you have each day.
Yeah. I'm going to restrain myself from digging into about 30 questions that you've generated on me. And this is where having a strict structure is really important, right? Because, Ana, I want to get your perspective on the kind of problems that you see email addiction causing for organizations. What other things do you see out there in terms of negative impact of this addiction to email?
Not sure if it's the addiction thing, but the dependency, which is slightly different, because the fact that organizations rely so much on email as a communication channel means that all the knowledge, all the thinking process, all the rationale for making decisions is usually buried in emails or in meetings sometimes, but we'll get to that, I'm sure, but certainly in emails. And that is a really wasted opportunity for the organization to learn and make that available. So one of the good things of COVID, and there hasn't been many, was the fact that organizations started to work more using the collaboration tools. And some of the things that were usually done by email, all of a sudden, because people were having chats online, started to be documented in chats. And chats is still not the best way of doing it, but at least it's a little bit more searchable place to get that information. So from a knowledge management perspective, it's really bad that so much is done by email. And I can quickly share an example from a client I'm working on at the moment. They send updates that are critical for their call center. They send them by email, and they are kind of the truth that goes on top of the documents that they have available. So they have a standard document as is the basis, and if there's an update, it's sent by email. And that's where people go to for information. But if you join as a newcomer, and if the update was 3 months ago, you don't know it, and you will do it by the document. So it's even really risky from a legal perspective for the company. And it's really interesting how this is a really good example of how dependent people, organizations are of email.
Mm. Yep, I saw your hand pop up there.
No, I wanted to applaud, but I clicked the wrong button. Sorry.
Yeah.
So here you go, Ana.
Teaching.
There you go. Yeah, some really interesting points there. I think one of the things that strikes me, Ana, as you're talking about things like search and finding knowledge in email, one of the pushbacks you often get from people who love email or who are so entrenched in email is, something along the lines of, oh, but that's how I store all of my communication, and they have these file structures and all that sort of thing. So that's not good from a knowledge management perspective, right?
The thing there is that you're actually making the knowledge that is shared between the person who sends the email and the people who receive it. And some of this communication by email is very often one-to-one. And I usually say that if a colleague asks you a question by email, before responding to that colleague, think if the response that you're giving him or her is something that will be of use to other people now or in the future. If you leave your job, if you're on holidays, if you're sick, or if that colleague is away, will that information be of use to other people in the organization? And if the answer is yes, it should not be given by email. It should be shared as a SharePoint page, as a wiki page, as a post on a Teams channel, so that people can retrieve it. And even if they feel it's noise, that they couldn't care less about it now, at least they will be able to search and find it later. And from a knowledge management perspective, this is what it's all about.
Nice. Yeah. Kragh, don't want to miss your perspective on this. Where do you see email fitting into the bigger digital workplace picture?
Well, it's first of all, I'd say it's where people live. A lot of people live in emails, and I also had it here over my holiday, when I would ask people, because if I got it in the chat messages, I would read them, but then I would have to, how do I, then I have to make tasks on each of the questions I got if I wanted to answer it later, or I have to store it. So I think it has a purpose, because we actually agreed upon over our summer holiday we were going to use emails. So that was where it was, and then I could sort of store it and put it in where I want, and then you might be laughing, but that's at least how it works for us, you know. And unfortunately, I know how hard it is for people to change. And I have a client at the moment where I'm writing to him on LinkedIn, and I'm also writing to him on Teams. And by God, now we're also on email, and it is really hard for me to find out where was the last thing that we agreed upon, you know. So. Yeah, okay. So, but I think there's another thing that we need to know about emails is that there are people out there in factories, or we have the Danish Refugee Council, who are out in far distances where the bandwidth is not very big, and you simply can't get on Teams, and you can't download big files. So you have to rely on emails, and this is for some newsletters. Email newsletters make sense, and it's also, as I say, it's also very good for notifications, just to say, hey, there's something there, and yeah. So that was sort of my 5 cents, because yeah. I think we're talking a lot more than we practiced. So I'm just sort of saying, I wonder if we can make it in the hour, but let's see. So I was just trying to keep myself a little bit shorter.
In the spirit of time, let's get to, I'd love to just open up to the three of you and get any suggestions on how organizations can start to fight this email addiction, or the email dependency. What ideas do you have for how they can make that shift away from email? Who wants to go first?
Well, I could let me do it then. Yeah, it's a short one, because we just had it this week, because there was a support function, and they received a lot of emails, and what he made was an auto reply for his support tickets, and say, I read emails once a day. By the end of the day, if you want a quick reply, please go to our Teams channel here. With your support tickets. Perhaps one of your colleagues will answer it, or one of my colleagues, or whatever. It's a lot faster. Don't write me an email. Put it in the channel. That's at least that was one way.
Nice.
And from my end, and it's just I kind of already shared something that I would recommend. So before sharing an email, think if what you're going to say is something that should be shared in an open place, so that it can benefit others now or in the future. And the future bit is really important.
Yeah, and from my end, the people that know me know this. I'm a big advocate of what we call working in a narrative, what some people call channel messages. But it is having a very structured way to structure your work in channels, where everything is a thread, and every update or what would be a reply on email would be a comment. So everything reads very clearly, very structuredly. The documents are part of this thing. If you start to do that well, which we teach some companies, they become a lot more productive, have a lot less email, and we internally have zero email, just with clients sometimes. And I think that is the most powerful thing to do, but you have to make a little bit of an effort.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of effort, let's get talking about meetings and this problem of meeting overload, or is it actually a problem? You know, there's a lot of effort that's gone into writing stories about this massive problem of meeting overload, and everybody's drowning in meetings. But the data that we've crunched doesn't tell that story. That speaks to that meeting overload problem only impacting a small portion of people. Do you see this actually as a genuine problem for organizations, this meeting overload? Anna, I'll come to you first on this one, if I may. And yeah, do you see it as a genuine problem? And if so, how does it impact organizations?
The overload word, again, I think it's the problem, because and it's actually very humbling looking at the data, because we are usually as consultants, a lot of the content we provide and we offer and we write about is around the people like us. We sometimes and very often forget about those working on the streets, cleaning the streets, or working in factories, because for them, yes, meetings are not a problem or an overload. Having said that, I think meetings have when we talk about overloads or the problem with meetings, I think there's three things that we need to consider. One is the quantity of meetings, so the number of meetings. The other thing is the duration of the meetings. And the other thing is the quality of meetings. And those three things are three important problems or part of the problem, and they are addressed in different ways. So maybe you have one meeting a day and it can be really long or still a waste of time. So it's not that it's too many meetings, but maybe that one wasn't even necessary. And those, as I say, are really important things. But the other thing for me is, why are we having the meetings? And that, for me, is a mask of an underlying problem, which is culture. And we do meetings, and this goes back to what Jaap was saying earlier about meetings are very usually for politics, because we as organizations are very often not transparent enough. So we want everyone in a meeting to make sure that nobody says anything in front or behind each other's backs. So you create meetings sometimes because it's a habit. So yes, we need to have a weekly meeting because we're running a project. No, you don't. So it's just like you do it because it was always done like that. And the other thing is, people do meetings very often because they don't know how to work in a different way. And that's the same thing as emails, actually. So there's emails and meetings, the quantity of both is actually a lot connected to the culture, not knowing how to do it better. And I think those are the actual problems, really.
Yeah, culture, that's the magic word, right? Just thinking practically, I might jump to you, Kragh, and see if you've got any ideas around the kind of things that you're doing around meetings that's making a real difference.
Yeah, we live from meetings because a lot of our networking groups are run in meetings. And as an example, we've started to use breakout rooms in the beginning of the meetings, knowing that people are 5 minutes late. Some of them are, and then they miss out on the breakout room. So we try to simulate the serendipity, or the fact that you go to a meeting and you have this casual chat and short introduction among people. So we use 5 minutes of the networking meetings for breakout rooms to sort of get to know each other. Another thing that you can do is you can in Outlook, there's a setting where you can do half-hour meetings are only 25 minutes. So they're simply cut off, because the reason why people come late is because the other meeting, it goes to the hour and it starts on the hour. So you don't have time to rest your brain. And that's why you sometimes get burned out. And then another thing about the conscience about the length of the meetings. As a matter of fact, when I meet people for the first time, I usually tend to make the meetings longer, because I actually want to have time to the chit chat. I take a little of the time that I spared not having to travel to go to the meeting physically. I try to take a little bit of that and extend the meeting so I can actually talk to people and get to know them, because I think that's, or at least it's important for me. So there is something. So I know that's the opposite. So I'm actually extending the meetings for some things. But then on the other hand, when we've reached that point, we can do a lot of other things asynchronously. I don't know. It's some of you can say that better than I can, but it's really a matter of not being able to actually answer on the meeting. So and then another thing we do is actually there are things you can do if you're in a meeting and everybody have to introduce themselves, then you can ask people to introduce themselves in the chat. That's a lot more efficient. And then it's even written down, and you can go back into the meeting and see, it's Pete who was working on that, and that's the way how we do our online meetings. You also can use whiteboarding to get some creativity going, and have people to write on the meeting notes along the line. So that, wow, I know Copilot will probably do the meeting notes for us in the future, and then we can summarize it as well, you know. So, but I think one of the things that's missing out, and I don't hear many do it, is actually to teach people to collaborate. I know one Danish company, Novozymes, did it years back. When team sites came, they had a guy, Frederick. He traveled around the world at each of their location and taught people how to work in team sites. And I don't know of any other organizations that have actually had a person doing that. Yeah, I'm sure you know, but you also know, Jaap, that
we do that. Yeah.
Yeah, you do that. Yes, in your own company. You know, I know you teach your clients to do it, but I'm just saying, you know how few are actually wasting time. And another thing, I think it's for a different question, but what I need is somebody in charge of collaboration.
Yeah.
Somebody also in charge of meetings and to tell people and teach people. You know, it's more the collaboration part. But yeah, I think that was my few cents. Jaap, I think you're the next one, right?
Yeah. Some really practical stuff in there, and also some big ticket items like that thing of who owns collaboration genuinely in an organization is a massive question. And I've got to say, it's rare for me to find that. I'm the same as you, Kurt. I think it's rare to find someone that says, yes, I'm responsible for driving collaboration, not the technology that powers collaboration, but the act of collaborating, how people work together. I think that would be great to see more roles focused on that. Let me
share a little story there, because it's not only that people, or it's not that people don't want to. So we have one client, actually, where the IT department has these people that focus really on what they call digital dexterity, and they're really professional. They're a good group of people, and they wanted to do this big campaign about working smarter into 2023. And what happened was they created this really good campaign, and it also focused, like rightly so, focused on how you work and the things you do, so the patterns and the behaviors. And then HR stood up and said, hey, hang on. We're about the behaviors. You guys can't talk about the behaviors. You guys talk features because you're IT. So what you get is a campaign that is about features that speaks to nobody, and it doesn't change anything. And so I think in that sense, it's also the fact that these sort of silos in large companies also prevent proper stories to reach the end user. In how to change the way they do, because it's not only changing IT, it's also changing the way you work. That's actually going to make things effective. And if you don't tell that as one story, it's not going to go anywhere. Anyway, that was it's off the bat.
It's a great example of how organizations can get in their own way around a lot of this stuff, right? Just in terms of meeting culture, Jaap, how could organizations make better use of the digital comms tools?
So I'll touch on one little element of it in that sense, because I think there's a lot wrong with meetings. I think a lot of what's wrong with meetings is that people are just genuinely lazy, and they actually prefer to go to how many meetings are you in where people are not prepared? They have to be told what's in a document, then ask their questions, and then there's a decision to be made. So I think there's this genuine laziness that they're not well prepared. You could do the same thing through email or again through channel messages and get your decision there. But people are just too lazy to sit down, read something properly, ask a question and reply, and then together come to a decision. So I think a lot of it is driven by that laziness. And because of that, you get a lot of meetings where people are usually going, having to be briefed. Everybody has to be briefed. A lot of people are bored. In any meeting, look at how many people are doing their email. Now, that's a really big sign of that it's not very useful to be there for them. And it's huge, especially in large organizations. So I think a lot of the meetings, and I think a lot of in a lot of cases, the question to ask for people is, do we really need this meeting? And I think a lot of the things that happen in meetings, like informing people what you've done, what you're going to do, informing people what's in a document, all of that stuff is updating, and all the updating can be done in an asynchronous way. So that's about 85% of stuff that happens in meetings is updating each other. So you could actually take away about 85% of all the meetings or the time in meetings and use it for something that's useful, like brainstorming, like really doing creative stuff, problem solving, where it's important that the chemistry flows and you learn from other people. But just sending information in meetings, it's useless. And I think that's why they get so boring. So ask yourself, should we have the meeting? I think that's a big one. And I see most of the large companies that we work with spend millions on meeting infrastructure, on technological stuff like the cameras, the big screen TVs, and all of that stuff. And the only thing it leads to is having better filmed shit meetings, basically. So it doesn't really help. It's really a focus on behavior, focus on managing the meeting properly, have an agenda, work your way through it. That sort of stuff is going to be a lot more important to fight the meeting monster than having fancy cameras and big displays. Yeah. So that's my 50 cents.
Yeah, that's a worthwhile 5 cents. I would wholeheartedly agree with all that's just come out your mouth. So on to the next topic of team alignment. This is a hot one. I think from our benchmarking report, we really clearly see this play out, that getting alignment amongst the team or the collective that is doing the collaboration, getting them aligned on their ways of using the tools is really important. So how is it possible to actually make time and space for people to agree on work practices? What methods might people employ to get that agreement on their work practices? Jaap, you were sort of touching on this just then around meeting culture. Do you want to take on this very open, broad question around how do you help people, or how do people get aligned around their ways of working?
Yeah. So it's well, I think maybe the important thing to say is that what we see happen in a lot of places is that people, they might be taught ways of working or ways to do things differently, but they don't sit down as a team and say, okay, how's this going to work for us? And a really basic, a lot of the companies right now are going hybrid, if they like it or not. A lot of people are at home for 1 or 2 days a week. And what you need to do when that happens is, as a team, and let me take my own company as an example. So we're in the office on Mondays and on Fridays, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, everybody's free to work wherever they like. So on Mondays, we've decided that's the planning days. It's the day that we, as a team, we align. So all the project meetings and everything like that happens on Mondays. We try not to have Teams meetings on the day that we're all there together, because that wastes the point of being together. So if you have client meetings that are in Teams, like we're having now, you try to put them on the days that you're working by yourself at home or whatever. And for Friday, we've said, okay, Fridays are for creativity. So we try to have meetings there where we brainstorm, where we have mural stuff going on, where we very purposely think about the time we spend together and the time we work asynchronously. I don't see a lot of companies do that, and that's crucial. But also, a step deeper, you have to go and think about, okay, so what are the tasks? What are the deliverables? What are the things that we work on as a team? Which of these tasks need to be synchronous? Which of these tasks need creativity? Which of these tasks need us to be together? And which of these tasks we can actually write in a Word document or a PowerPoint or an Excel behind our computer on our attic or in the basement or wherever we are, and get feedback through asynchronous ways of working. And that's maybe the most powerful way to do as a team, is to really think through, okay, how do we actually divide our week? And then what you see happen, what a lot of people do, I also did that, is that your week is driven by the meetings that you have, because your agenda fills with meetings. Actually, what we do is have those tasks and also plan those tasks during the week, so that you actually also allot time to really get stuff done and to do that asynchronous stuff. So really rethinking the way you plan in that sense. And then the last thing, that's a little bit of the icing on the cake, but it's something we discovered a little bit later, is you also have different personalities in the team. So very extroverted people like to have meetings, and very introverted people actually like to be at home and work concentrated and do things asynchronously. So something that we're more and more looking at as well is to also stick introverted people on more introverted or more asynchronous tasks, and get the extroverted people a little bit more on things that are together with other people and a lot of energy and things like that. And if you add these three things together, so think about what you do where you are, think about your tasks in terms of focus and being together, and think a little bit about the personalities. Then the hybrid thing can really work for you, and of course the way your team is structured. So that's a process we've gone through. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Anna, what are your thoughts on this thing around how getting team alignment around ways of working?
Yes, I think picking up on what Jaap was saying, besides different personalities, there's something else, which is different levels of experience or digital dexterity, let's call it, of how comfortable people are with using these tools, really. So, and one thing we were talking about training and about helping people to know to use the tools, as Jaap was saying, is not really about teaching them the features. So let's start from a scenario where we have these agreements, as Jaap was describing, and we agree with your team how you're going to work and the tools that you're going to use, if it's the channels or the planner or whatever tools you agree as a team to use. Training or some sort, and it doesn't have to be like a group training or formal training, it could be a one-to-one with the people who really need it. Help them understand how to use the tools to do the things that you agree to do as a team. So these helping them to use the tools should always be about helping them do what they need to do, not just to show them how cool the tools are and how the wonderful features, because that will come with time. If people feel the need to, they will start asking questions. But if you agree with the team that you will start to use planner as a way of tracking your tasks through the week or the workload or whatever, then people will feel the need to use it, and that's the moment where you help them to use planner. It's not to sell them planner or whatever tool we're talking about as a, yeah, this is really cool, you need to know it. So that would be my contribution here, because yeah, just what's in it for you in a very, very practical way.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, super practical advice there. Kragh, what about your thoughts on this, getting alignment around ways of working and sort of building that culture?
I think psychological safety was the key in one survey or whatever that was done at Google, that if you want people to share stuff, then you need to have psychological safety. You need to feel secure in your job. You need to be able to speak your mind. And obviously, if you don't have that in your organization, then, well, nobody's going to share anything. There's another survey done also about happy people. Happy people will deliver a good customer experience, even though they have a shitty boss. The one thing that they are not going to tell the boss or the organization is good ideas, innovative ideas that they get from having a dialogue with the customer. They'll keep that to themselves, because they're not going to give that to the shitty boss who's just going to take it on his own and bring it up and get promoted on basics of that, and not getting back to you, because that's not the type he wants. So, okay. So another story that I had from this week's networking meetings was that one company has this, you can't invite people without a purpose for the meeting. You need definitely a purpose for the meeting. You need an agenda. And you also need to tell the people who you're inviting what role they're going to play in the meeting.
Yeah.
And if there isn't a role for somebody, they are okay not to reject or attending the meeting. You're also okay to leave the meeting if you think that I cannot add to this meeting or I cannot benefit from what's coming from it. So you're free to leave. That's okay, and that's part of the rules in this organization, actually, to leave the meetings if you can't. Another thing that they had done, they had a little script made that when you were doing the invite, it was adding up the number of people who you're inviting, multiplying that with the length of the meeting, multiplying that with the hourly rate, and coming up with the cost of the meeting to tell the person who was organizing the meeting that this meeting is going to cost the company 500 euros. Do you think it's worth that or not?
Interesting.
Yeah, I found that pretty interesting because it often gives people a scary thing to say, hey, is it really worth spending the 1,000 euros or whatever on this? And in the same discussion, there was a person who said he was invited for a meeting on the next Friday for 3.5 hours. It was a budget meeting. That was about it. His boss has invited him for a 3.5 hour long budget meeting. He didn't know what it was on about. The person is actually in the meeting, but I'm not revealing any names. And then the thing that also came out of the meeting this week was actually use cases. So if you're relating your teaching, your help to use cases, not just teaching. If you're teaching people to use tools, you're not getting there because they can't relate it to their use case. So and actually, to do proper training, you need to understand what the problem is, and you do that when you got the use cases, and perhaps work with personas as well.
And that's to the point Anna was making around sort of the right time, the sort of just the point where someone needs something is when they're going to use it, and it's a challenge, right, to be there at that point. Just with time in mind, I do want to get one. I want to put you all on the spot with. I'm going to restrict you to just one thing you would recommend to an organization to make sure that digital tools have a positive impact on collaboration. So I'll go to Anna first. What one thing would you recommend to make sure that digital tools have a positive impact on collaboration? If you could only do one thing, what would it be?
I don't know if it's the most important one, but it's very rarely seen. Include collaboration and proper use of collaboration tools in people's appraisal. And that means managers as well.
Nice. Right.
That's it. Very short.
Get some skin in the game for people. Kurt, what about you? What one thing? I know this is a constraint.
I have said it earlier, perhaps out of scope, I don't know, but I want this one person in charge of collaboration, and this person also could perhaps be a person that works across internal comms, HR, and IT. And I see some companies working with that scope. We also had that in this works networking meeting, and it's actually to getting IT, communication, and HR to work together. And again, it's this person. And you can call it DEX, Digital Employee Experience, which is what it's all about, and some people work about. So that's the way that I see this. One person is perhaps also the person in charge of collaboration and digital employee experience.
Cool. Yeah. For you, what one thing would you recommend?
Focus on the way you work more than on the technology.
Nice. Kurt, you and I need to pay attention to how Jaap and Anna answered that question. One sentence, done. We can watch and learn. We'll watch and learn. This is good timing for us. Hey,
I miss this.
We've just got a few minutes left, and it's kind of like, you know what the ultimate big on trend thing at the moment is AI, right? This was not really sort of something that was a major thing that we focused on in the report, but it's obviously it plays a part in the report. If you download the collaboration benchmarking report, you will get some commentary in there around sort of AI in the future. It would be wrong of us to do an event right now with some experts on it and not mention AI. I just want to finish by asking you a very broad question around each of you individually. What are you seeing, or what do you see as the likely impact of AI when it comes to digital collaboration within organizations? Kurt, I'll start with you on that one.
I think on the very short term it'll be lacking. I think because people need to get around it. And I'm really struggling to find sort of real examples, because we're actually having a conference. I'll just kick an invite in the chat for you. But about AI, and I've been looking for real examples, and the best I can get is Philips to come and talk about their limitation, or the rules, how they're gonna use AI or not allowed to use it, because there's a lot of scary things I think about getting it out there. So, but if I should say things where I see it is note taking. I've mentioned that before, a note taking bot, and also something that could summarize things, and also note taking and then assign actions. That's I'll try to be short here, so I learned a little bit perhaps. But I having said that, I don't think Jaap has been all that short as well. But.
Yeah. Let's be fair. And actually, Jaap, I'll hold off on coming to you on that note. So I'll jump to Ana now. Make sure we give Ana as much airtime as possible. What are you seeing as the impact or the opportunity in this AI space?
AI and collaboration seem a bit out of sync in the same sentence. For me, collaboration is all about people and AI is everything but. So I find it really hard to mix the two in the same conversation. Having said that, I think AI will be really helpful in terms of helping people with their productivity, and can lend a lot of value to knowledge management. And from that perspective, if we have AI helping us with some of the productivity matters of our day-to-day, that will hopefully free our time to be able to socialize more, and socialize also in a knowledge management way, which means like exchanging knowledge directly with each other. Give us more time for serendipity, for being creative, for being innovative, and that's obviously really valuable. So I think AI for collaboration will be as something that will helpfully create more time for us to collaborate rather than do the collaboration for us.
Yeah, really good point. Really good point. Jaap, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I in the short term, I actually think it's going to make things worse, because it's going to be a lot easier for a lot of people to create more content. So it's just going to create a bigger information overflow, I think. I also think there will be a big divide in the people that are actually able to use it well, and people that are not. And there I'm referring to properly briefing AI to get the quality of stuff that you need. We're starting to get some experience. Let me not brag too much about it. So we tried to build a campaign with AI, and I think briefing AI, giving it all the examples and everything you need for it to work well, probably took almost as long or just as long as creating the campaign from scratch. So that it's, but I think, there's going to be a small portion of people that are actually able to really brief AI well, so that the quality, that they get a lot of quality from it. Yeah, I think that's and then all the other things, the summarizing and those types of things, I think that's interesting. But there's also, if I summarize a meeting or if I take notes of a meeting, it's also a process for me to pick out the things that are most important, write them down, memorize, and thereby remember them. Digesting what's been said. So if we take away that process, I think it's just going to be more emptiness, and that's it. So I still need to see that this great thing that's coming to us.
Yeah. So sadly for those people on the call hoping AI is the silver bullet that's going to turn a switch and all your problems are solved. Yeah, I think I have to agree with the expert perspective in general, which is that it still requires a whole lot of work to get it adding value, right? Look, thank you so much. We're at time now. I've not been paying any attention at all to the chat as I've been chatting myself, but I hope there's been a lot of conversation going in. Kragh, Ana, Jaap, there may be some questions in there that you want to take a look at and respond to. For anyone on the call, make sure, if you're not already connected with Kragh, Jaap and Ana, make sure you seek them out on LinkedIn. seek out their organizations. Obviously, Kurt at Intrateam, Jaap at Orange Trail, Ana with Noman. And in particular, I would urge, as if you see Social Now being mentioned, I would urge you to take a look at that conference, which is happening at this, early next year. Definitely one to put on your list of things to attend if you're interested in collaboration. Then Social Now is a fantastic one to get along to. I say that from pleasurable, joyous experience of attending myself.
And Lisbon in May.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yes, if nothing else, because it's in Lisbon. Yes.
So I'd love to hear, for those who are still on the call, if there's one thing that you will take away, please share that in the chat. Hope that you've enjoyed today's session. If you'd like to know more about SWOOP, if it hasn't already been shared in the chat, I would ask one of my colleagues to share our website. But yeah, swoopanalytics.com, and get in touch with us. Gemma, who's on this call, she looks after North America. Myself and Nicole are looking after all of our clients across UK and Europe. Please reach out if you've got any questions around SWOOP Analytics. If you need any guidance, support, or anything on your own collaboration journey, then there's 3 fantastic experts on this call. So let me just say thank you once again to Ana, Jaap, and Kurt. Really appreciate you making the time to share your thoughts. Thank you very much, everyone.